Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first edition of the Geeking Out podcast for 2021. And this week on the show, I'm bringing back one of my favorite guests and someone who really admire for their artwork and have a bunch of their artwork hanging throughout my home. Erik Hodson has come back to the show. Erik, thanks for coming back.
Well, thanks for having me. It's nice to be back on the show, and happy 2021 to you.
Happy 2021. And for this one, we're going in little bit different of a direction. Whenever I first came up with the idea of this, I really just wanted to use this as a platform to talk to a lot of people I knew about what they appreciate about both comic books and professional wrestling. And you know for the better, this show actually, I got a lot of local independent wrestlers and artists who reached out to be part of it, and it became just a good interview show, at least with the feedback I was getting. And but I did want to kind of take this back to the original idea just a little bit, and I wanted to have Erik back on here to discuss his favorite wrestling matches and his favorite comic books. Because those sorts of things have influenced his art, and yeah, I know we touched on them just a little bit in our first interview, but I feel like there's a lot more meat on the bone, as Conrad Thompson would say. So yeah, if you're ready, what are some of your favorite? If you had like a top 10 list, what would be like your top 10 favorite wrestling matches?
Um,
And
uh,
we
for
can
for
talk in depth about each one of them as we go along.
for 2020.
For all time, if you wanted to, yeah, just anything.
Oh, geez, all
Yeah,
time. Oh gosh. Well, let's see. And I can't quantify these in any particular order.
that's fair.
It's one of those things. It's like you like different things for different reasons,
Right.
and it's just uh, you can't say that like this is the best versus something else
Right.
because you might like it for some other reason.
We just did our year-end awards on my wrestling live stream. It's me and three other people talked about our top 10 favorite matches of the year, and it was very interesting why one person had this match, and we all had different reasons from different promotions. So yeah, I totally get what you're saying there.
Yeah. Well, let's see. One that sticks out in my mind, pretty recent, but the Charlotte Flair versus Asuka
Okay.
when they first met at WrestleMania.
Now, um, I know the last time I got to talk to you in person was at WrestleCon in New York City. Do you do WrestleCon every year? Were you at that WrestleMania, or how many WrestleManias have you been to?
I've only been to one actual WrestleMania, but I've done two WrestleCons because of course we didn't get to have it this year.
Right.
So that's kind of where I'm at in attendance. It's for me, like going to the big events has never been an economic thing, so I've only gotten to do it once.
Right.
But that was WrestleMania 23 when it was here in Detroit,
Oh, okay. Awesome.
and that was a big deal for me. I remember that was the hair versus hair match with McMahon and Trump, and I made these
Right.
giant scissors up in the nosebleeds, of course. So
Oh yeah. But Charlotte and Asuka, I love that match. I'd really like to hear what stood out about that match because that's kind of as good as it was. That's considered by many to be kind of a controversial match just because of the ending to the match. I know Charlotte Flair, very polarizing figure for better or for worse, with the kind of the internet wrestling community, and Asuka was kind of the golden child from NXT. So I know a lot of different people had a lot of passionate opinions about that match. But what stood out about that match to you?
well, I know it was built up to be Oscar coming in. She was coming in undefeated, And people, yeah, you're right. People have different opinions, varied opinions about Charlotte Flair, but Charlotte's one of my favorites in the WWE. Having gotten to meet her briefly, she's a sweetheart, and so I guess that probably taints my bias just a little bit. But
Right.
as far as the match goes, I think it was just a really good wrestling match. I mean, it was bloody. Technically it was really good. Of course, that's one of the things I like about Charlotte Flair is like she's a good technical wrestler for a women's division
Hmm.
a person. Like she can do some nice power moves. I think my first thing that I was really impressed with her when she put powerbomb Natalie through a table. I mean that was
Yeah.
I'm like, oof, okay. But and it's just like that was the match I was looking forward to the most in WrestleMania because I wanted to see what they would do with it if they would maintain the undefeated thing or if they would actually like have Charlotte come out on top and it ended good. It gave me some emotes and it stands out to me for that reason.
Okay. Well, I while Charlotte's not my number one favorite wrestler in the women's division, I do feel that sometimes she does get a little unnecessary hate against her. But it was a good match. I can't say I was. I'm a big. I probably like Asuka just a little bit more. So the ending did kind of leave me a little deflated, but it was still a damn good match, and I'd maybe other than the mixed tag match, I would say that's probably one of the better matches that was on that WrestleMania card.
Yeah, yeah, it was definitely for me. It was definitely a standout match on that card. Um, Now let's see. Another one is WrestleMania 10, the Intercontinental Championship ladder match.
That's a special one to me because that's the first match I remember, and I bought that piece of artwork from you
Yeah,
at WrestleCon to be signed by Shawn Michaels the next day. So that was my in getting to meet my favorite wrestler. That's what I decided. This will be what I have him sign. This is the thing. This is going to be the canvas. And unfortunately, the line for Razor was too long, but I couldn't couldn't go up and get him after I met Sean. But yeah, so what stood out for this match to you?
well, for me, this is kind of like the birth of the Attitude Era for the most part, because we're
Interesting.
getting we're getting the ladder match coming in. Hey, this was the first time the ladder match there was a ladder match, wasn't it?
I know Sean and Brett did some on some house shows, but never
Yeah,
like in
yeah,
front of like a like live TV or live pay per view.
yeah, yeah. So I would imagine those were just testing the gimmick out to see if people are just going to outright die on this and getting it ready for a screen probably then.
Right.
But so yeah, it brought something to wrestling that wrestling hadn't seen before, and I mean it was a great match. Like two of my favorite superstars at the time going at it, and it's one of those unique things that it's one of those things that you can't duplicate because it was so unique and so groundbreaking for the time that
It
you can never have you can never have another first ladder match.
right.
So
Yeah, it really. I mean, I know the ladder match concept has been people like the Hardy Boys and Edge and Christian and the Young Bucks and everybody's kind of taken the concept of the ladder match and really built off of it. But with the exception of not as many high spots, the psychology of that match really does still hold up today. Um, I know a new fan might see that and after seeing the Lucha Bros and the Young Bucks or seeing some of the TLC matches and kind of scratch their head at what the big deal is. But I think just in terms of everything that each wrestler did meaning something, it's still one of the better ladder matches. And I think even some of the pioneers of the next generation of ladder matches will tell you it still holds up.
yeah, Yeah, totally. Because I mean, so many people have been inspired since then. You think about people like the Hardy Boys and the Young Bucks, who ladders are an integral part of everything they do. Would we have those guys if Sean and Razor had to try it first? Maybe, probably, because those things are also being done in New Japan and all that. But certainly domestically, that inspired a lot of people to work
Absolutely.
this gimmick in.
All right, so that's two that stood out. What would be another one of your favorites?
Well, if we go all the way back in time to when I was a very young boy, I was a huge Ultimate Warrior fan.
Okay.
Before that, I was a Hulk Hogan fan. Well, I mean, I'm still a Hulk Hogan, always been a Hulk Hogan fan. But I remember like the whole era back in the day when you had Macho, you had Hogan, and you had the Warrior, and they're basically trading the title around. That was like the big top things. But the Survivor Series where Warrior beat Hogan for the World Championship.
Seriously, or I thought that was WrestleMania.
Was that WrestleMania?
Yeah, it was WrestleMania 6.
Oh, yeah, you're right. It was WrestleMania 6.
Yes.
I, I you know, I, I don't know why I got stuck in my head as a Survivor Series match, but
Well, the old WrestleMania theme before the WrestleMania, it did say, "Are you ready for Survivor Series?" I was just
no.
watching a feature about that, and I'm like, that makes no sense, but okay. So that could be how you got confused.
But back then, I had this idea in my head, and I think we all did, of Hulk Hogan being like this massive, unbeatable person, and then just the energy of the Ultimate Warrior coming in and doing what he did, and it was probably the first time I became aware of the concept of passing the torch, which is what Andre did for Hogan, letting him slam him.
Right.
Passing the torch onto a new generation, and this was kind of Hogan passing the torch onto a new generation with the Warrior, and it just cemented that fandom of the Ultimate Warrior for me, made him like my top guy for the longest time. Um, and I never had a chance to meet him. He died just before there was going to be a Wizard World event he was going to be at, and I was all geeked
Mm.
to finally get to meet him, and that didn't get to happen, unfortunately. But it was. I remember that Hall of Fame. His speech at the Hall of Fame almost was prophetic of his own death, which was
Hmm.
which was crazy. I guess deep down he knew it was coming, but it was definitely quite a shock. And another polarizing character. He's had his share of controversies and whatnot, but yeah, I think on screen as a character. And if you ever read any of his blog when he was doing a blog, he was like, he lived the part.
Oh yeah, he was. Yeah, we don't really go too much into his blogs because they were little little out there at times, and that's me being kind of diplomatic. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
definitely a character. Unfortunately for me, I never got to really experience the Warrior. When he was in his prime, because like I said, my first match I remember was from WrestleMania 10. So the only real exposure of the Warrior I remember is his '96 comeback and then his WCW uh, debacle. Because calling that a
Yeah.
comeback would be being a little generous, but I hear from so many people that were fans at that time just how the energy when you felt the Warrior come out, was something that maybe you can't appreciate watching the old tapes. It's something you had to be watching at the time to experience. I don't know if that's a fair assessment or not, but
No,
that's
it perfectly makes sense to me.
so. We got three. What would be a number four on the Eric Hodson Hall of Fame match list?
Oh well, bounce off of a reference to Hogan. I think him turning heel and forming the NWO
Okay.
definitely stands out there. Because I I like we all were. We were caught up in the Monday Night Wars,
Hmm.
um, and the NWO was probably one of the best decisions that Bischoff ever had to really energize not only the Monday Night Wars, but to make WCW's product what it was at the time. Before it started to water it down and everybody in the universe was in the NWO, that got really silly after a while. But
Right.
when you just had like the core, like the outsiders coming in, this was like WWF invading, and it was really cool and interesting to watch. And Hulk comes out and he's got that same old energy of the original, Hulk Hogan. I still tear up when I listen to Real American. So
Right.
it's you're like, oh yeah, okay, he's coming out, and nope, it was the biggest subversion of expectations I think in wrestling.
Um, since you mentioned this, I know a lot of because I didn't. I mean, I was watching wrestling at the time, but I did not see that happen live. Do you think that you think Bobby Heenan messed that up by saying whose side is he on when he came to the ring?
Well, that was just par for the course for Heenan.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Because he was always that devil's advocate, always that heel guy. But yeah, probably a little bit of a giveaway. But since it happened like right then and there, um, it turned it into like a little small foreshadowing moment that you only realize after the fact.
Right.
Because yeah, I remember at the time, Heenan saying something like, "Oh, Heenan, this is Hulk Hogan."
Right.
It kind of like when in, what was it, Superman 3, when Superman gets the bad kryptonite and turns evil for a while.
Right.
um,
See, I don't remember
but
that from
but but
Superman
Hulk,
3.
Hulk,
I remember
Hulk,
that from Smallville when Clark got the red kryptonite on his high school class ring and started acting like an asshole. That's my red kryptonite moment was from Smallville. But go on.
um, yeah, but to Hogan's credit, he made it work. And it's one of the
Hmm.
things that's difficult in wrestling, unless you're Chris Jericho, is to remake yourself and have it be a success.
Absolutely.
Uh, to Jericho, it comes naturally, and I think that's what makes him the goat. But for Hogan to do it, it was a total reversal of his character. It was no more say your prayers and take your vitamins. It was NWO for life and spray paint you on the back with a can and just but it worked, and
Hmm.
it really ticked off the fans. You had It's sad to see it, but yeah, he had kids crying. Um, and it's always going to stand out in the history of wrestling as like one of the biggest moments ever, I think.
I think one of the most interesting things about that moment is the fact that the kids were crying, but a few months earlier, people were growing a little tired of Hogan, at least in terms of his act, and especially with the more southern fan base. So I think it's one of those you know be careful what you wish for sort of moments, because
Oh yeah, totally,
you know
definitely.
everybody was still like, oh, they need to do something different with Hogan. They need to do something different with Hogan. Well, here's your different, and people were livid, but you know it drew money and it worked.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
So
okay,
that's what, five,
it's four.
four.
We had
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So number five, another one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, and to me was the GOAT before Chris Jericho, Bret the Hitman Hart.
Mm, I
And
love Bret.
he,
I like Bret Hart a lot, but I'm a Sean fan, so we're gonna have a little
no, I
tension
know,
on
I know,
that
I know.
goat.
And that particular the screw job match is definitely on my list too. But let's go back to WrestleMania 13 with Bret Hart going against Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Absolutely.
This is another time where you've got a kind of a clash of generations, because Austin was Attitude Era, Hitman is the previous era. But Hitman is in, he's in the later part of his prime of his career,
Right.
because his career really took off. The New Heart Foundation, being world champion, and all that stuff. That was kind of like his zenith moment. And so this match, my gosh, you got like a street brawler in Stone Cold Steve Austin, and the technical master work of Hitman, and it was just it was a wrestling 101 clinic. It was a
Absolutely.
masterpiece of a match. It's one of those really rewatchable matches.
Yeah, it's still talk about still holding up today. That match still holds up to me, and I'd go so far as to say it's probably my favorite Bret Hart match of all time.
Oh,
I think even it's a toss up between that and the Owen match, but that I might give a slight edge to the WrestleMania 13 match as far as if I were to rank just the Bret Hart matches. This is probably number one for me.
did it make you start to like Austin, or because I know some people have said that they loved Brett and they started to hate Brett during that match and started rooting for Austin.
Well, for again, I'm putting myself back in the headspace I was at. I was Shawn Michaels through and through, especially that time because I was a kid, and I like Brett, but then like Brett started acting like a jerk towards Shawn, so I'm just kind of like, well, I really ain't got a whole lot of love for Brett anymore, because he's being a dick to Shawn Michaels and yelling at him. So while I didn't really wasn't really a big Austin fan because he was still technically a heel at the time. I guess it's just kind of like, well, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, I guess, kind of thing. So I was going into the match rooting for Stone Cold just on the sense of like, well, he hasn't like poured it on my guy as much as Brett has been, so I guess go Austin. But then at the end, it really solidified. I don't want to say like he became my favorite wrestler, but it made me appreciate Austin more. And then later on down the road, I know like when Austin was wrestling Owen and stuff for the Intercontinental title, I was definitely firmly in Austin's corner for that. Now WrestleMania 14, I wasn't in Austin's corner, but we all know why.
um, well, let's talk a little bit more about Brett and Shawn, because obviously there's the Montreal screw job. That's all in our heads. But
Right.
previously to that, the Iron Man match.
Okay, that's another match. It's fun to talk about because you get a lot of different opinions on this match because of just some people think it was too long, some people think there was not enough action in the match. Um, so again, it's one of those controversial matches. A lot of people seem to either really put it on a pedestal or they kind of think it's overrated. But I'm assuming just you bringing it up, you think it's worthy of the pedestal.
Well, when you look at professional wrestling, it's as much technique as it is stage show and performance. And yes, the Iron Man match didn't have a lot to offer as far as the pop and circumstance and the stage show, but this was two really solid technical wrestlers, and they gave everything they had and more in this match. So for me, it's again one of those matches that's rewatchable. Like I would never. There's a bunch of matches I would never watch just because they were more about the storyline than about what was going on in the ring.
Right.
And this was really about what was going on in the ring. And a lot, the whole thing about it being too long. Before wrestling was on TV, this was like a minimum length of a match.
Right.
So, and again, you think of the histories of these two, and the amount of talent that they both have, and technique and precision. Um, it's a special thing to see them like really go toe to toe and really try to wear each other down.
Do you feel with this match maybe it would have not be it would maybe be more universally praised had there been a couple falls throughout the course of the match instead of it being 0-0 to the very end.
Yeah, probably. I think, and and how much of that was the wrestlers' decisions in the ring to make it turn out that way, and how much of it was backstage? Because I think a lot back then it was more to do with what the wrestlers decided to do in the ring.
Right.
I think the fact that it was 0-0 leans to it that they were basically really trying to go back and forth on each other. It wasn't. It had more to do with them in the ring than it had to do with getting audience pop.
Right. That's fair. I mean, obviously, I love. I think I like the moment at the end more than the match itself. Just me personally, not so much that's like I think it was a bad match, but I just whenever I when I think of that match, I just kind of like I could watch the last 20 minutes of that anytime and still be entertained. But
Oh yeah, yeah,
I gotta be in a headspace to go like, let's sit down and watch the whole Iron Man match. I gotta be like mentally prepared for the whole 60 plus minutes, with the overtime. But the last 20 minutes where they really pick it up, and then Brett getting the sharpshooter and the bell ringing, and you think like that. That to me is just that part is gold.
sure, yeah, definitely.
All right.
Um, let's see. Well, for me, another big thing, not necessarily match, but it did lead to some great matches, was Chris Jericho coming to WWE.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, I loved Chris Jericho as Lionheart. I was a fan of his. He was definitely, he was definitely cruiserweight division during those days. Really good, really talented. He didn't get used properly in WCW.
Oh no.
So for the Millennium Man, the countdown, just the energy to that, and what he brought, because Jericho to me is he's the goat because he excels at everything that you need to excel at as a wrestler. He is a tremendous in-ring personality on the mic, off the mic, technical wrestler, trained in the dungeon. No question there of his abilities. He can make you like him as the heel, which is
Right.
rare. And just again be able to constantly reinvent himself successfully. I don't think there's been a single bad iteration unless you want to go back to his Mexican days, which he was just starting out, so he didn't have his footing. But him coming into the WWF, WWE, running his mouth, going up against The Rock, going up against Stone Cold, no fear, no nothing, and then seeing him unify the championship and getting both belts. Um, that was, that's like kid in a candy store. That type of stuff is like, again, that's not necessarily something that I could go back and sit down and rewatch, because you're not going to experience those emotions like you
Right.
did for the first time. But it's akin, that kind of scenario is akin to seeing, like the big pop with the Warrior winning the belt, and or the Ken Hogan slam the Giant. That's like the first time you experience something, and it's just like, wow, that was really energetic and cool. And so definitely Jericho's debut, which had a little bit of a lull until they started using him properly. But man, once he was coming out interrupting people like The Rock and Stone Cold, and just giving them the what for, it was a fun time to be watching.
um, you bring up Jericho and bring up the magical moment. I think to me one of my personal I don't know if it's my favorite Jericho moment, but it's definitely up there. For me, probably the one that I really sticks out's when he won the title, but then they reversed the decision in the year 2000.
Yeah,
Uh, that because I was so like I couldn't believe it actually happened, and then like I was so to go from like being on this high that oh my god Jericho just won the title, Jericho just won the title, and then they reversed the decision. You're like, "God damn Triple H, taking away like that, that's bullshit," And I was 10 years old, and I remember like trying to cover my mouth so my mom didn't hear me cuss and go, "That's stupid bullshit. That's stupid piece of shit, and I'm here trying to make sure my mom doesn't hear me swear. So
Right,
that's kind of
right.
my other than all the different the plethora of Jericho memories. That one's the big Jericho memory for me. But you know, you said on the last interview and on this one, you feel that Jericho's the GOAT, and I'm not gonna disagree with you because he's definitely amazing. What do you have a favorite incarnation of Jericho? There's so many. Is there? It's like the different incarnations of like the X-Men or Batman. You have a
Oh, yeah,
favorite
yeah, yeah. No, yeah, yeah, I
Jericho?
get you. Yeah. Well, um, I really did enjoy. Like you said, the Millennium Man gimmick was really good. The list was incredible. I mean, I think maybe the list is probably his probably his top one because that
Okay.
was
Yes.
I think it combined the best elements of his character. You know, getting the in your face and the shut up and all that, you stupid idiot. And it was a great way for him to go out of the WWE as well.
Right.
Also, that's when I met him. Was it during the prime of that? And it was probably my favorite, like my favorite introduction to meet because he's the one that requested to see me because he liked the artwork so much.
That's awesome. That
Uh,
we might have talked about this on the first interview, but I met my one time meeting Jericho. Was at a Wizard World convention in St. Louis. It was 2014, and I was doing a Joker cosplay. So when I met, I get to my get up to get my autograph from Jericho, and he's a comic book fan, so he's like, "Oh man, that's awesome! Who's your favorite Joker?" And we're talking about like, I said my favorite's Mark Hamill. And he's like, "Oh, that's really interesting. It's not Ledger." I'm like, "I love Heath Ledger, but Mark Hamill's the man." And we're talking about this, and I ask him about the Nitro dance in his book, and we talk about he's because he says, "If you want to see the Nitro dance, just ask me, and I will do the Nitro dance for you." So I ask him about that, and the security guard's like trying to get me. He's like, "Hey, come on!" And Chris Jericho says, "Hey, he's fine. We're talking." So that's how I'm always going to remember Chris Jericho is just like the fact that he insisted on allowing us to continue our conversation. The only thing I'm a
yeah,
little sad about is he asked me, he's like, can I get a jacket like that sometime? And I said like, oh yeah, you should like make your if you ever come back, you should make your re-debut in a Joker jacket. He says yes, and full Joker makeup. He didn't come back in full Joker makeup, but he's kind of doing it now, so Jericho lives up to his word
yeah. No,
with the
definitely,
Painmaker.
definitely. And that would probably be like my number, like two or three version of him would be the pain maker.
Right,
Just because it was a pretty good departure for him, and it's that's who he is in New Japan Pro Wrestling is
right.
that's a really good. If I was to do like a Jericho comic, I think I would do something kind of like I would love to see it like switching into different personalities,
Right. He could be
like the ultimate Jekyll and Hyde scenario.
oh yeah, that's a great idea for a comic book actually. Uh like he can he's like this huge rock star who can be like really really cool when he's on stage, but then he can be like the diva to some other people backstage and then turn that into the Painmaker. That'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah, yeah, that would take a really good writer to pull off, I think, too, to make the transitions really
Right.
good. But I think it would be a lot of fun to put something like that together.
And I think
Um,
Jericho would be definitely on board with some kind of idea like that because Jericho's into stuff like that. He's a comic nerd. He likes he likes those kind of TV shows. He likes good storytelling. So
yep,
yeah,
yep, no, yeah, yeah. If you can get to him because his agent is a bulldog at making sure that nobody talks to him unless they've got the coin.
well he's earned that right, and for better or worse, he's earned that
Yeah,
right.
he's definitely earned that right. But it makes getting through the channels tough. But I guess that's kind of what you have to have when you've reached his level, because he certainly
Right,
reached the level of a Hulk Hogan, of a Shawn Michaels, of a Bret Hart, of an Andre. He's a legend in the business.
right.
And I gotta tell you, him and MJF singing that duet was amazing.
Mhm. That's everything Jericho touches is gold, and it's gonna be a real sad day when he hangs it up for good. But I feel like he'll definitely still be involved with something, so we'll always have
Yeah,
Chris
well, I mean,
Jericho.
he's great when he's on the announcer duties too. When he's
Right,
doing like calling matches and stuff, he's perfect for that. So if he ever decides to permanently stop, but I don't see that happening for a while. I mean, Sting came back too, so
right,
and Sting's got a good 12, 15 years on him, I think. So
right. All right, so we've gushed about Jericho. Any other matches that we can continue? Because this is great. Any chance I get to talk about Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart and Chris Jericho and debate it, this is what I love.
okay, well, let's talk about like Hell in the Cell matches.
Okay,
Now, for me, the biggest thing that stands out is Mick Foley and The Undertaker.
okay.
I mean,
Um,
that's another one of those seminal moments in wrestling that could never be recreated, and you get the same amount of emotion out of it. Legitimately thinking that mankind or Mick died,
right,
gosh. And once you know the story behind the story of that match, because it was all basically on Mick to call it. And when you
right.
see Undertaker eyes bug out when Mick gets up, that was a legitimate like, are you seriously still doing this?
Now
It's like,
you did. He did. I saw Mick Foley do his 20 Years of Hell comedy tour. I believe you did the artwork for that. Did you not?
yes, I did. Yep,
Yes. So I have that poster. Um,
awesome.
uh, I'm kind of two minds about the hell. I mean, that is a moment that is iconic in the wrestling business, and you can go back and see all those moments and hear the stories, and you realize just how amazing that is. I'm gonna get called a I'm gonna get called a fanboy, and I'm gonna get called a mark, but I feel like I have a good argument. I feel, in terms of moment, yes, there's nothing touching Taker and Mankind, but as far as the match, I feel that Shawn and Taker was a better match because of just kind of the psychology of the whole match. There's actually a wrestling YouTube channel I follow, Wrestling Bios, did a video about this where it's like you kind of like see the way the match is paced and the way the story is told. Like Shawn Michaels, he's being Shawn Michaels. He's all cocky and and he's got DX around him. He's like, I got this. And then when you hear the gong, he starts like, oh, okay, he's psyching himself up. And then when the thing comes on, he's like panicking and he's like feverishly like going up to the rest of DX like, oh guys, I want out. I don't want to be in here anymore. And then he's like, you like see like the everything changed. Just the expression of like he's the cocky heartbreak kid to, oh fuck, I'm gonna die. I cannot get out of here, and there's the Undertaker, and I'm fucked.
I can definitely agree with you on this as far as the match goes, because with the Hell in the Cell Taker Mankind, it was a oh my god, I can't believe that type scenario. With Michaels and Taker, this was a meat grinder.
Right.
And so I think entertainment value, um, as far as with wrestling and with what was going on with between the two of them in the ring, between Taker and Michaels, yeah, definitely a better match. Didn't have the jump out of your seat moment for me, I mean, because getting choke slammed off the top of the ring. I mean, come on.
Right.
I can't believe that was ever greenlit in the first place.
Right. Yeah, that's and especially when you listen to Mick tell those stories, um, and what he can recollect going through his head at the time.
Yeah.
And then Mick, just being able to be Mick and make humor out of all of them. Uh, have you ever gotten to see his stand up with that? I know you made the
Oh
poster.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I actually, it was quite a privilege because I got to. it was at a Wizard World Chicago that was poorly attended. But he was there. We were hanging out. He did his little show, and in comes Glenn Jacobs.
Speaking of the first Hell in a Cell match.
Yeah, exactly. And also the Nasty Boys. And so they're basically doing an MST3K style riff while Mick's up there trying to do his thing, and they all kind of ended up joining in. So it was it was a pretty cool moment. There's like 11 of us in there
Nice.
to watch this again because it was pretty poorly attended. But
That's
me being a behind the scenes person, I just walked right in, sat out, and it was cool.
um I don't want to get. I mean, I know my channel is known for tangents, but it's funny you say that Wizard World Chicago was poorly attended because I went to Wizard World Chicago once because I got to meet the Undertaker and Jeremy Renner and Stephen Amell, and that was kind of like where I became. I hated Wizard World because of how the staff treated you, but on the flip side of things, I'm like, well, but look at all the people paying money, so I guess they can get away with it. But you mentioned that Wizard World Chicago being poorly attended. That's surprising to me because usually Chicago's the hotbed for the conventions.
Yeah, it can be, but it's like every year that there was a Wizard World Chicago, especially after because it was really great until they split it into two rooms. Ever
Gotcha.
since they split it into two rooms, it was always a crapshoot which room the audience would think was the con and not realize there's a whole other room.
Okay, I understand because I know there was multiple rooms when I went. This was 2015 when I went.
Yeah.
Um, but
Once that became a thing, that was always a big issue
yeah, because I remember.
because the crowd didn't know what to do with itself.
Yeah, because I know like there's just like I can kind of see the um. I'll just tell the story right now. There was one of the guest artists at Artist Alley was C. Martin Crocker, who, for people who don't know, was the voice of Zorak on the Space Ghost Coast to Coast and the Brack Show. So I saw
Yeah.
he was in Artist Alley, and I like just kept going through up and down to making meticulous effort. Where is he? Where is he? Where is he? Where is he? I can't find him. So I go to like the Wizard World staff, going, they gotta know. I mean, they booked the guy or they whatever. I don't know, but so I ask him, hey, where's this guy at? And they're like, oh, he canceled. Okay. So I do the Jeremy Renner, meet and greet with my girlfriend at the time and everything. And my friend that went with us kind of like, oh, hey, I found C. Martin Crocker. And I kind of thought like, well, maybe I could go catch him, but I'm just like, I'm over it. It's time to go home. We're tired. We've had a whole weekend. We got yelled at in Stephen Amell's line for wanting to ask for a handshake, and Stephen Amell tried to oblige, but the security didn't. So that
Yeah.
was, there's my tough time. I always have to say, Stephen Amell was great. The security wasn't. So it's like at that point, I'm just like, screw Wizard World and how they treat people and how they don't know what's going on and
Yeah.
all that jazz. But on the flip side, I'll sell out if they get somebody I want to meet at a Wizard World convention. So that's my Wizard World tangent, just because that's what happens. But yeah, just you went to that Mick Foley. Have you been to any of his others, or where you got to actually interact with Mick? What was your interactions with Mick been like?
Well, usually it's just been when we are at the same show together, we have a small time where we'll just chat and whatnot. And like I remember going into the bathroom at WrestleCon in New York, and he's like, "Hey, does this blood look realistic? You're an artist. Come here." And he was like using Sharpie on his head for his photo op to do like the bat across the head with the kids and stuff. So. And we chat once in a while on in Twitter and all that. I just did a Christmas card for him for a signing.
Okay,
That was a lot of fun. That was the newest thing. It was limited to like 200, so the people who got them are very, very lucky. He did like personalized messages on Christmas cards.
that's pretty sweet.
I did every one of his iterations too. So it's like Mick in the sleigh in the middle of it, kind of sort of dressed like Mankind, and then we had. Or not Mankind, but Cactus Jack, and then we had like Mankind and Cactus Jack having a snowball fight on the front, and on the back it was Dude Love hanging up putting an ornament on the tree, and the tree's like barbed wire, and there's little baseball bat ornaments and stuff. So
That's pretty
it,
awesome.
it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. I spent some of my money and I bought one for myself to send to one of my best friends in Indiana, and that was his Christmas surprise. So
That's awesome.
because he's a huge Mick Foley fan, so that was a lot of fun. But yeah, we have a good relationship. He ever gets to do another tour, I'm sure he'll give me a call and we'll do tour for artwork number 3. Because I did his book tour after I did the comic tour. He had me do the book tour one as well. That's the one where he's like sitting in the chair,
Okay.
reading his book, and so he's going over his Have a Nice Day history of his Have a Nice Day book.
How many pieces have you done for Mick? Because I know I have the one from the 20 Years of Hell. You have the Christmas card. You have the book. Um, I want to say
Well,
I've seen one more, haven't you?
there's the original one I did with him and Undertaker.
Okay.
And then there's the 3 Faces of Foley I did for Starcast 3,
Okay.
which he really enjoyed. And that was a takeoff of an old Spider-Man cover. I was able to do it with like Mick really large and then have his personalities underneath of him. That turned out pretty cool. I think I got a couple of those still hanging around. But yeah, so like Mick and Sting, I've probably drawn the most.
Okay. Um,
Just
so
because those moments are always come up.
so since the lists are in no particular order, which is fine because this has turned out even better. Just us doing these, talking about all these different people that we have interacted with or seen the work of. You mentioned Starcast, um, and I remember on our first interview, we both have kind of different opinions on Starcast, but overall, it was a fun weekend, and the first Starcast was the precursor to AEW as a whole. Do you have any favorite matches in the short history of AEW that really stick out?
Well, yeah, that was actually going to be my next one.
Nice,
The Blood Brothers match in Vegas on Double or Nothing.
awesome.
Cody versus Dustin. This was before I got to know Dustin as well as I do now. But this I was sort of privileged to be at the event, see it happen live, and it had me in tears. They told the most amazing story in that ring, and it was brutal, and it was honest. I mean, it just had you in
Oh
knots
yeah,
the whole time I was in knots over it. And I and being more of a backstage person now and knowing a little bit about what goes on, I couldn't imagine myself feeling that way. But I legitimately got lost in this match, caught up in it, and it was an amazing experience.
it I yeah it was a match that proved that a lot of the AEW haters, a lot of old school people that your Jim Cornettes and people out there who say that AEW doesn't have any fucking psychology. Um, Need to watch that match and put a Wendy's cheeseburger in their mouth and shut the fuck up because like seriously, like that's one of many emotional matches that AEW's had. I think that's still kind of as far as like probably the most old school of all of them, but still, it's amazing, and it shows that AEW isn't just a bunch of flippy shit.
Yeah.
Um, what is your opinion on AEW as a whole? I know it's again, you want to talk about something controversial. A lot of people have a lot of different opinions on AEW. What say you about AEW?
Well, AEW, when I do get to watch wrestling live, I don't have cable right now, so it's been kind of hard for me to catch up with what's going on. But AEW is, I guess I'm a little bit biased because I got to be behind the scenes at its creation to some degree. Because it really kind of, like, between All In, yeah, All Out, between All Out and Double or Nothing, that's when it really kind of started to form itself.
Right.
and Double or Nothing basically being the first pay per view of what the entity of AEW is. And so with seeing what they were trying to do and what was coming together, it's another one of those magical moments in wrestling history. It's something that can't be recreated. I mean, with All Out, you had all these different independent promotions all coming together, the best of the best, and they
Right.
put on one of probably the best show of wrestling of all time. Like you can say what you want about WWE's pay per views, some of the ones in the past. They have a lot of really great key matches. But as far as like a show beginning to end, I don't think anything beats All Out.
Um, I've always called All In Weekend, you know, 'cause I met so many great people there. I call that like the Woodstock of wrestling.
Yeah, it was definitely I'm sorry, it should be All In. All Out
Yeah.
was the second one.
All
Uh,
Out's the one that they own the rights to. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. All In was definitely the Woodstock of wrestling. It was, and there's no denying that these people were putting everything they had on the line. They were risking a lot. They didn't, people were betting against them. Constantly betting against them.
And
This
I
would be
know I wasn't betting against them, so to speak, but I didn't think it was gonna sell out the way it did. Um, I did a whole series on the channel about the on sale date and everything, and I remember just kind of saying, I thought it was gonna sell out, but I thought like wasn't gonna sell out that quick. I just wanted a front row ticket. I thought like, well, I better get on this now because I just want a front row ticket, and then I thought I messed up and had to get a wasn't bad seats, but wasn't definitely not on the floor. I'm like,
right.
I'm mad I didn't get this front row ticket, and I wasted wasted a personal day to do this, and I'm mad. And then I find out it's sold out. I'm like, oh, okay, I got it. I'm happy now. I'm good. Um, but yeah, there was a lot of people. Well, Dave Meltzer bet against him. And yeah, Dave is Mister Underground Wrestling in some point, international underground wrestling, and he was
Yeah.
saying, yeah, this isn't going to work, and
Well, coming from my perspective of where I was at, it was I was getting back into wrestling because of the energy of the Bullet Club or Ring of Honor, because it was fresh. It wasn't, WWE had gotten stale. The entire like the only thing I was even interested in was the women's division in WWE for the longest time. But that's just but the product had gotten stale. They had bought in WCW, ECW. They'd taken out all their competition. There wasn't really anything going on. And then this whole phenomenon around the Bullet Club and the Bucks in Ring of Honor, getting introduced to some New Japan stuff, started to get wrestling interesting for me again. And for me, basically seeing, because I mean, Impact had gotten super stale too. Like ever since they had ended the Octagon and gone back to, it was Hogan running the show with what's her face. That had become a stale product as well. And it was just like, this was the first like injection of creativity. So you could kind of see this magical thing coming together with All In, where it was like all of these independents just said like, you know what, we're gonna go prove that we can do this better than the big boys in the company, and they wanted to prove themselves, and just you get caught up in that energy. And again, that's why we call it the Woodstock. It was magical.
mm-hmm.
It was what every wrestling fan wanted to see, but weren't getting to see because of where wrestling was at the time in the mainstream.
um, so tapering off of that a little bit, do you have a favorite match from the first All In show?
I would have to say, gosh, oh, it's really hard to pick a favorite out of all of those.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I remember, gosh, well, that last match when Jericho runs in dressed up as Penta.
Yeah.
That was hilarious because that was right by my seats
Oh wow.
where he ran in and out. I was right by the announce table.
I
Uh,
I
So
told the
that was
story on my All In podcast. I remember I had to. I like throughout the Omega Pentagon match. I was really had to go to the bathroom, so I was just holding it, and then Kenny drops the one winged angel, 1, 2, 3, and then I sprint up to the bathroom. I'm like, okay, like I got a minute, and then I hear everybody like going crazy, so I hurry up and run back down, and like the security guard was all like, "Man, shit's going down. You better get to your seat." So I
yeah,
hurry up,
yeah,
run
yeah.
down there, and I get there just in time to see Jericho pull the mask off, and
Yeah, no, I mean, because that match, like, anytime you get to see Kenny wrestle, especially vintage Kenny, because
right.
he's such a great technical wrestler, and so is Pentagon.
Hmm.
So that was like a really, that was probably one of the best matches. I got caught up in the whole storyline of the Nick Aldis Cody Rhodes match, with
Hmm.
the history of him wanting to have the belt that his dad had, and and all of that. That was pretty over the top. That was pretty cool. I really enjoyed the women's four-way with Britt and Tess. Uh, I'm a Britt Baker fan. I'm a Tess Blanchard fan, so that was a lot of fun. Um,
And see, I walked out there because I'd never seen Chelsea Green before, so I walked out there thinking of go like, "Wow, this Chelsea Green girl's pretty cool," you know.
yeah, no, she was pretty impressive. So, gosh, and another one, the Stephen Amell Christopher Daniels match.
Oh, yeah. That
I
was.
was so surprised to see how well Stephen Amell did, and
Hmm.
how well Christopher Daniels made Stephen Amell look.
Um, the next day at Starcast, I ran into Dave Meltzer in the lobby, and that was the match I wanted to ask him about. Just because, like, of all the special moments and matches, Kenny and Pentagon, Cody and Aldis, just everything that went on. The one thing I wanted to ask him about was, so what do you think of Stephen Amell? And to his credit, he's like, oh yeah, he did a great job, and he was taking some big bumps, and he's got a hit show. He shouldn't, I didn't expect to see him taking those kind of bumps, and I'm like,
Yeah, no, no.
cool.
Didn't he go through a table too?
Yeah, he went through a table.
I mean, that's got to have his agent like, man.
um,
I remember because I talked to Christopher Daniels briefly in the green room, and I was like, "You made him look really good," and he appreciated this sentence because because I think Christopher Daniels is probably one of the most underrated wrestlers of all time,
oh yeah,
at least with current generation. He's so good, but he's never had that spotlight moment for whatever reason. Like,
right, yeah,
I don't honestly understand it because I mean he was one of the highlights of Impact, when he was the Fallen Angel, um, but they never pushed him, and I don't think he gets the push in AEW that he should. But
uh,
he's so
yeah,
good technically though.
right.
He could compete on he could be on the level of the bigger more well known guys. I think definitely.
Absolutely. I know. I really want to see him and Jericho have a full on storyline. The two great over 50 guys in AEW.
Yeah, no, that would be tremendous. I think, and I think that would probably be what that would doing something like that would probably give Christopher Daniels a good out to retire because
Hmm.
he would retire on a high note.
Right. Um. So we've talked about quite a few great matches and memories. Is there anything else you want to make sure you get out there before we wrap this one up?
Well, how many more do we need?
Uh. I honestly have lost count because we just started talking about moments. So we talked about All In. We don't need it. Just however many more you want to talk about's good. When the format got thrown out the window for this one, which is good.
um, I don't know. I don't really have anything that really super sticks out. I mean, there's just like not specific matches, but specific wrestler personalities that I miss.
Right.
I was a huge Mr. Perfect fan. Again, I'm a huge technical wrestling fan, so like him and Bret Hart going at it for the Intercontinental Belt was a great moment. Um, and there's other moments like that. Like one of my favorite wrestlers right now, in the women's divisions is Sheeta,
Okay.
and I'm
Yeah, I've
so glad
really,
she has the
really.
belt. I loved seeing her beat Nyla at Double or Nothing, and I'm kind of surprised they've let her keep the belt as long as she has. But I think she's a great world champion for them.
Um, you mentioned Bret Hart and Mr. Perfect earlier. It's funny you mentioned that because as much as I love the SummerSlam match between the two of them, I actually think I prefer the King of the Ring match they had in '93.
Oh, okay.
Like just like by a hair, I just like I because I remember like I kept hearing sometimes hype works against a wrestling match, and that was a great match. But I remember just like hearing all this hype about the Bret Hart Mr. Perfect match. I'm like, oh yeah, it's a really really good match. But like I never really heard anybody talk about the '93 King of the Ring match, and I'm like, oh wow, this is great. Like I was more like surprised at just how great the match was, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, between with those two, as technically sound as they are,
Right.
every match between them is going to be entertaining to watch. They those are two ring generals. So
Absolutely. Um, you I guess since we kind of brought him up a little bit, I guess the last one. Do you have any favorite Undertaker matches? And Undertaker or Kane? Because I remember on the last time we had you on here, you talked about a lot of interactions with Kane and Undertaker just being one of the greatest of all time. I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about both of them and some of your favorite matches from them.
well, definitely that Hell in the Cell match between them. The first one was really good. Just the whole storyline of them being brothers and rivalry, that was a great moment in WWE to get caught up in during the Attitude Era. It's probably one of the better non DX storylines that was going on at the time. Uh, and this might sound peculiar, but I really liked what they did with AJ Styles and Taker.
Okay, I no, I
Not necessarily, it was a match; it was basically a movie, but Um, I thought that given the circumstances we were dealing with in 2020 and what they had to work with and what they did was absolutely phenomenal. Not to
it's
rip
always
on the AJ Styles much, but it was the in a weird WrestleMania that I felt awkward watching because of the empty seats. That was the highlight, and that was it was a great way for the Undertaker to really finally start his exodus.
and all respect and love to Undertaker, but please make that the last one. I don't. I
Yeah, he
don't. I
needs to
don't, I
stop
don't
having
like feeling
comebacks.
sad when I watch the Undertaker. I want to feel happy when I see the Undertaker, and I haven't felt
Yeah,
very happy seeing the Undertaker the last few years.
like I was so disappointed that they had Brock Lesnar in the streak, but I hate Brock Lesnar, so
Uh,
he,
talk about
he,
controversial figures. Brock
he
Lesnar.
he's you know he would be he's only as good as Paul Heyman is as far as being a personality for the WWE. Because of Paul Heyman. But without Paul Heyman, there'd be nothing to him at all. He's cardboard. He's uninteresting. It's just, can this be over with?
And I know I have a couple listeners. There's gonna be three or four that you've just like achieved godhood status by saying that, and then there's gonna be about three or four that are gonna say you don't know what you're talking about, and they're gonna go uh, on a rant on why Lesnar's the goat and this, that, and the other. So there might be a war in the comments section on this. I'm just letting you know now. um, I mean, I appreciate you doing this. I know I wanted to talk comics with you, but we might have to save that one for part three, talking about your
Sure.
favorite
Yeah,
comic
I have no
books.
problem with that because, like, with comics, the last 2 or 3 years for the indie comic scene has been really big. I don't know if you know this or not, but there's a new Roddy Piper comic that came out this year.
I
So
heard, I haven't read it yet. I really want to. And what's if I can learn more about some of the indie comics out there, that would be great because I know I love Batman and Green Lantern and the X Men and Superman and the Flash, but the new comic book industry's kind of like it's kind of sketchy. I'm not really quite as excited about comic books now as I was you know, last year or 2 years ago, rather. Now,
Yeah, no, it's if it wasn't for the indie comic scene, I would just be making them and I wouldn't be reading them because I'm completely, Marvel and DC are stale and boring. They're trying to do things that the audience doesn't like just because reasons. I don't know.
right.
Um, Lunatics are running the asylum, whatever you want to call it. But the indie comic scene has flourished because of that, and I'd love to join you for another one and talk about some things that your audience probably hasn't heard of that
Yeah,
we
we'll
really need to
talk
get into.
talking indie comics. So I can learn some, and then also if we can bring up some old school stuff because I feel like a lot of people comic books can be like wrestling. You're either all old school, but I think there's a lot of comic books that a lot of people haven't checked out from the past that
Oh yeah,
definitely
totally.
could need some love, and they need to go search out or find the trade paperback of. But that'll be next time because yeah, we could probably talk for another 2 hours about independent comic books and old school comic books. But um, appreciate you coming back. You want to plug anything out that you're working on right now, or plug any social
Yeah,
media?
absolutely. I would love it if everybody would go to Webtoon and look for my comic, The Dreaded Dinosaur Man. That's my biggest push of the new year. I'm going to be working towards doing a published comic that's going to be on Indiegogo, hopefully by March. But I'm telling story for free on Webtoon, so you can read about my character there. Also, go to Pro Wrestling Tees and buy the Roddy Piper comic book. Get your hands on a copy of that. We're almost through the first run of the book, and there's some changes that have to be made because of contracts. So the next printing is going to have is going to be missing a character, not a major character, but someone who pulled out after we had gone to print on the first printing. So it's going to be a rare one. So if you want to pick up the first edition, make sure you do that from Pro Wrestling Tees. And then, just head over to my website and my store, buy a couple of prints, erichodson.com. Help me pay the rent. I appreciate that. And other than that,
And
everybody have a happy, wonderful new year. Let's try to make 2021 help us to forget 2020 for good reasons. And, and just enjoy wrestling, enjoy comics, whatever you're into, geek, nerd culture. Embrace it, enjoy it, and let's survive.
and also, if you're a fan of the High Spots virtual gimmick table, definitely pick up an Eric Hodson piece if they're
Oh,
having
please,
those.
yeah, and let them know you want to see more of my work, please.
All right. Well, appreciate Eric for coming back on the show. Definitely check him out on social media. I am buying the comic book as we speak right now on my phone. And if you want to follow me on social media pages, facebook.com/athleticgeek89, Twitter at athletic_geek89, Instagram at athleticgeek89. And if you'd like to help improve this channel, hit me up on Patreon, patreon.com/athleticgeek89. Check out Eric, buy some prints, check out his cartoon. And we're going to have him back, so talk more stuff, but we'll see you next time.
All right, thank you.